Hello, welcome to FatCat Maths. This week we're going to be looking at how to factorise a quadratic equation. Being asked to solve a quadratic equation is a very common question. There are three methods to choose from. The first is factorising, the second is completing the square, and the third would be to use the quadratic formula. Factorising should always be your first port of call. It's the easiest and quickest, and I would suggest that if you're trying to prioritise modules to learn, factorising should be one of the first. Let's go through the different steps using a worked example. Here I'm being asked to factorise x squared plus 4x plus 3 equals 0. In order to factorise this, the first thing I always need to do is write out two sets of brackets. Next, I'm going to put an x at the beginning of each set of those brackets. In the third step, I need to write down all of the factor pairs of whatever number is at the end. In this example, the number at the end is a 3, so I need to write down all the things that could times together to make this number. Luckily, we have an easy one here because to make 3, you can only do it one way, 3 times 1. So that means that my factor pairs are 3 and 1. Next, you need to choose the pair that you can add or subtract to make the number in the middle. Again, we are lucky here because we only have one pair to choose from, 3 and 1, and if we add them together they do make 4, which is our number in the middle. Then, to finish off, all you need to do is put your numbers into the brackets next to your x plus. In the most common type of quadratic equations, you won't have anything in front of the x squared at the beginning. And if this is the case for your question, it doesn't matter which way round these two numbers go. So to summarise all of those 5 steps, we can just say this. We need two numbers that times together or multiply to get the number at the end, and we need those two numbers to add or subtract to make the number in the middle. Let's try again with this example. Here we're being asked to find x squared plus 7x plus 12 equals 0. So I'm going to start from the beginning where I write out two sets of brackets, and I'm going to put x at the beginning of these brackets. Next, I need to write down my factor pairs. The factor pairs of 12 are 12 and 1, 2 and 6, and 3 and 4. These numbers all multiply together to make 12. Then I need to choose the pair that I can add or subtract to make the number in the middle, which is a 7. There's no way that I could make a 7 out of adding or subtracting a 12 and a 1, nor is there any way of making a 7 by adding or subtracting a 2 with a 6. However, I can add the 3 and the 4 together to make a 7, so these are going to be my numbers. I can put these into the brackets, and because there's nothing in front of the x squared, it doesn't matter which way round they go. So, are things different if we have a negative in the quadratic equation? Only slightly, and only at the very end. To begin with, we're going to put our set of brackets out just like normal, and put an x at the beginning of each set of these brackets. Then I'm going to write down my factor pairs of the number at the end, which is 5. The only two numbers that can times together to make 5 are a 5 and 1, so those are the only numbers that I can use. This is where things change a little bit, because I need to make sure that the 5 and the 1 make a minus 4. If I just added them into the brackets like before, a plus 5 and a plus 1 would make a plus 6, not a minus 4, and these two things wouldn't times together to make a minus 5 either. I have to think about the fact that I want to get a minus 5 when I times these two numbers together. Remember that if I times a positive with a positive, I'll get a positive. If I times a positive with a negative, I'll get a negative. But if I times a negative with another negative, then I'll get a positive again. So the only possible way of getting a minus 5 when I times these two numbers together is if I make one of them positive and one of them negative. The key now is to figure out which way round this has to go so that I end up with a minus 4 when I put them together. If I start with a positive 5 on my number line and I take away 1, I end up with a positive 4, so that's not what I want. If, however, I start with a minus 5 and I add 1, I do end up with a minus 4, which is the number I'm after. So that tells us that these are the two numbers that I want to use in my brackets. Again, there's nothing in front of the x squared at the beginning of the equation, so it doesn't matter which way around these two go, but it is important that it's the -5 and +1. Okay, so why don't you pause the video here and see if you can give these 3 factorising questions a go. So for the first one, I need to think about the two numbers that will times together to make a 12. So I've got 1 and 12, 2 and 6, and 3 and 4. I then need to think about how I can make a 13 out of these sets of numbers. The only way I can do that is by using the 1 and the 12. There's no way I could make a 13 using the 2 and the 6 or a 3 and a 4. Everything in my equation is a positive, so that means that my answers can both be positive. An x plus 1 and an x plus 12. We can double check our answer by checking that a positive 1 and a positive 12 multiply to make positive 12, which they do, and that a positive 1 add a positive 12 make a positive 13, which again they do. For the second question, we want factor pairs of 10. The only way I can make a 3 is by using the numbers 2 and 5. Next, I have to think about whether they're going to be positive, negative, or one of each. We want them to multiply to get a negative, so that means that there has to be either a -2 and a positive 5, or a positive 2 and a -5. We want a positive 3 because that's what's in the middle, so those are the two numbers that I'm going to use, -2 and positive 5. Lastly, for this question, I want two numbers that multiply to get 15, so my factor pairs would be 1 and 15 and 3 and 5. And then I need to figure out which set of numbers could make an 8. I can't make an 8 using a 1 and 15, but I can using the 3 and the 5. I need these numbers to multiply to get a positive 15, so either both of these numbers are going to be positive or both of them are going to be negative. I also need them to add together to make a positive 8, and that only works if both these numbers are positive. So I'm going to need a positive 3 and a positive 5. Okay guys, that is it. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen. As always, I really hope that helped, and please hit that subscribe button. I am a brand new channel, so every single subscriber means a huge amount to me, so thank you to those who already have, and I will see you next week. Bye!